Hi, this is Lawrence Whitaker of the Design Mechanism, and I'm here speaking to all my good friends in Brazil who are hopefully supporters and backers of Mithras and the Catarse project that you have going to crowdfund the new version of the game. So I'm here to answer a few questions that my Brazilian friends have been posing about Mithras, and I hope that you find the questions and especially the answers informative. So let's dive straight in with the very first question, which is, although we can have all the rules in just one book, the rules are heavy compared with other systems. What's the best way to start with Mithras RPG? I think it's true that Mithras can be a bit crunchier, a bit heavier than some other game systems, but really it's not that complicated. It's a D100 system. You're going to try and roll under your skill or equal to it using percentile dice, and if you manage to roll lower, then you succeed. There may be special benefits if you roll very low. There may be something that goes catastrophically wrong if you roll very high, but really it's quite a simple system. But the easiest way to find out what Mithras is all about and see how the game runs and how it plays is to use a free version of the rules that Macaco do Mal has on its website, and which the Design Mechanism has in English on its website, which is called Mithras Imperative. And this is a streamlined, trimmed down version of the full Mithras rules. Quite playable as a game in its own right. You actually don't need anything else, and it gives you a very, very good flavour of how the rules work, how they're put together, how to make characters, and even how to use some advanced powers like magic or even superpowers if you like superheroes and that kind of thing. So Mithras Imperative is the best way of getting started with Mithras if you've never played a D100 game before and you're curious to know what it's like. Okay, the next question is, what kind of experience could a new player expect playing Mithras? That's a very good question. I hope that you'll be really excited by it. It's a simple, straightforward system, but there's lots of nuance, lots of different things that you can do. And things such as character creation, magic, and combat, they have a lot of flavour to them. You're not just dealing with simple spells like fireball or trying to kill as many people as you can of a certain level. The way that we have designed Mithras is to, first of all, try and make it realistic and feel realistic when you're playing it, but also fun as well. And things like combat and magic, we've tried to build in lots of flavour to them. So hopefully that will come across when you sit down to play the game. You should also find that the rules kind of melt into the background. It always takes a couple of sessions, both for games masters and players, to become familiar with a new role-playing system. But when you've played a couple of games of it, a couple of sessions, you should find that the rules fade away. You may have to look things up from time to time, but as you build more experience, the less you have to look up, and the more you will find is actually built into your character sheet. You don't need to go through lots and lots of rules to find out how to do something in Mithras. It really is quite intuitive, and that's true of most D100 role-playing games. Mithras is no different to any of those. I think the other thing is that there's lots and lots of things that you can experience with Mithras. If you just want to play straight fantasy, then you can do that. If you want to play a more modern game, something like superheroes, as I've already described for Mithras Imperative, you can do that too. So there's lots and lots of variety, lots of exciting things, and we think that when you've played Mithras for a couple of times, you'll become hooked and you want to play more and dive more into the game. Okay, so the next question is, what kind of campaign can I play with Mithras? Well, that's entirely up to you. Mithras can support most types of campaign style, whether you want single one-shot adventures or you want a long extended campaign that runs over many sessions, many years. A couple of my campaigns have run for 5-6 years at a time. What Mithras does very, very well is fantasy, sword and sorcery, and historical fantasy. And we have source books and campaign books that support all of those. For example, Mythic Britain is a kind of Dark Ages fantasy setting. Thendla, Shores of Carantia, and the Tascan Empire, very high fantasy setting with lots of magic, set in a kind of amalgam of the old Greek world. our supplement Classic Fantasy provides all the tools you need to actually play D&D style games with using Mythras. So there's lots of different campaign types and settings that you want. But if you don't want to play fantasy, if that's not your bag, we do have some other campaign settings that can assist you there. One of them is Luther Arkwright, which is a kind of science fantasy setting. It's plane hopping interdimensional spies that are trying to thwart a sinister organization called Disruptors. All the characters have a unique power, and they've got the capability to move across the multiverse. They've got lots of very high tech at their disposal, psionic powers, individual abilities and traits, firearms, guns, and there's even a kind of a steampunk feel to the whole milieu. So that is another example of a very different kind of setting that we have. We also have straight out science fiction. Worlds United is a science fiction campaign which is set in a world where the Martian invasions of H.G. Wells really happened. They really took place. And there wasn't just one invasion, there were two. And the world is still sort of reeling after what happened when the Martians invaded. They've managed to retrofit some of the old Martian tech, like their tripod war machines. They've made contact with life on Venus and some of the outer planets. And it's got a great sort of ray guns and starships feel from the 1950s to it. So Mythras can do science fiction very well as well. And if you like horror or dark fantasy, then we have After the Vampire Wars, in which the characters play vampires, werewolves, changelings, fairies, that have kind of emerged from the shadows after a long period of hibernation and having to stay in hiding, and how the world of the 21st century deals with these new species that have come to light. So Mythras is very adaptable. We've got lots of different campaign styles, lots of very different campaign settings, and more are on their way. We're always developing brand new things that Mythras will support. So there's lots and lots of things already out there to suit most tastes and most styles. So the next question is, Mythras, as presented, seems to be an RPG system focused on pre-medieval campaigns but with solid rules to play in other eras, as we see in Vampire Wars and Luther Arkwright. Can we expect a rulebook with more generic rules in the future? That's a very good question, and the answer to that is possibly. We don't have any plans at the moment to create another version of Mythras. We're very, very happy with how the rules work. We're very happy with how they're presented. However, we have thought about, should we include rules for firearms? Should we include rules for psionics? Given that we've got so many different campaign books that have the rules scattered around in different places. So at some stage in the future, we may look at making Mythras a more generic kind of a rules toolkit. But I think really the best answer is to create our setting and campaign books as standalone games. And that is something that we're doing a lot more of. I've mentioned superheroes before, and Mythras has a superhero setting called Destined, which should be coming out later this year or very early next year, and that will be a standalone game. It will use the Mythras rules, but heavily tailored to the superhero genre, and so that will be a self-contained game. So I think what we're more likely to do is more self-contained games than a very detailed rule kit book. And you have to bear in mind that if we do a very sort of generic rule set that has rules for vehicles and so forth, it's going to become very, very big indeed. Mythras is 330 pages as it stands. We'd be looking at making a much, much bigger book. So we might go in a different direction. But it's a great question, one we've been asked before and have thought about ourselves. Okay, so the last question, save the best till last, is what is the most fantastic thing about the Mythras role-playing game? Something that makes it unique. Well, for me, it's the culmination of at least 10 or 15 years worth of game design, playtesting, changing things and so on. It's taken a long time for us to design Mythras. Its history goes back a long way. And I think what we've managed to do that makes Mythras unique is get the rules and the mechanics to a point where they're pretty well refined. They hang together very well. They work very well together. They may be a little bit crunchy for some people's tastes, and that's absolutely fine. But I think by and large, I think that the unique thing about Mythras is that it does play very well. There's usually a way of doing something quite easily within the rules, and if we don't have a rule to cover it, it's quite easy to create one that will fit in with the way that the other things work. And as we've already spoken about, it's very adaptable. We can do science fiction, we can do horror, we can do superheroes, we can do medieval fantasy, we can do low fantasy, we can do D&D style fantasy. There's lots of things that we can do with Mythras. So I think that's one of its unique selling features. It's very, very adaptable. It's a fun game. There's lots of great features to go on with it. People love the combat system and the magic systems. And you know, I hope that you will as well, and that you'll back the game and that you will make it successful. So I'd like to thank all my friends in Brazil. I hope you all keep very happy, very sane, and very safe as well in these times. Take care. Goodbye from me.